Mike Prisner is an Iraq War veteran, and when he came back from the war in 2008, he immediately started working to end it. So he helped create the organization called March Forward, which is fighting for exactly that. Let's listen to a speech that he made.
And I tried hard to be proud of my service, but all I could feel was shame. And racism could no longer mask the reality of the occupation. These were people, these were human beings. I've since been plagued by guilt anytime I see an elderly man, like the one who couldn't walk, who we rolled onto a stretcher and told the Iraqi police to take him away. I feel guilt anytime I see a mother with her children, like the one who cried hysterically and screamed that we are worse than Saddam as we forced her from her home. I feel guilt anytime I see a young girl, like the one I grabbed by the arm and dragged into the street. We were told we were fighting terrorists. The real terrorist was me, and the real terrorism is this occupation. Racism within the military has long been an important tool to justify the destruction and occupation of another country. It has long been used to justify the killing, subjugation, and torture of another people. Racism is a vital weapon employed by this government. It is a more important weapon than a rifle, a tank, a bomber, or a battleship. It is more destructive than an artillery shell, or a bunker buster, or a Tomahawk missile. While all those weapons are created and owned by this government, they are harmless without people willing to use them. Those who send us to war do not have to pull a trigger or lob a mortar round. They do not have to fight the war, they merely have to sell the war. They need a public who is willing to send their soldiers into harm's way. They need soldiers who are willing to kill and be killed without question. They can spend millions on a single bomb, but that bomb only becomes a weapon when the ranks in the military are willing to follow orders to use it. They can send every last soldier anywhere on earth, but there will only be a war if soldiers are willing to fight. And the ruling class, the billionaires who profit from human suffering, care only about expanding their wealth, controlling the world economy. Understand that their power lies only in their ability to convince us that war, oppression, and exploitation is in our interest. They understand that their wealth is dependent on their ability to convince the working class to die to control the market of another country. And convincing us to kill and die is based on their ability to make us think that we are somehow superior. Soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen have nothing to gain from this occupation. The vast majority of people living in the U.S. have nothing to gain from this occupation. In fact, not only do we have nothing to gain, but we suffer more because of it. We lose limbs, endure trauma, and give our lives. Our families have to watch flag-draped coffins lowered into the earth. Millions in this country without health care, jobs, or access to education must watch this government squander over $450 million a day on this occupation.
That was incredibly powerful, and I could just see it now. Conservatives whose faces get bright red when they hear him say, quote, "The real terrorist was me." Now, I actually have three disagreements with him. Overall, substantively speaking, it's on point. But my three disagreements are, number one, to the idea that you call Iraq an occupation. No, the thing about U.S. foreign policy post-World War II that has made it so incredibly nefarious, in my opinion, is that we put a mask on old-school imperialism. Like, if you look at old-school British imperialism, they would just come in and be like, all right, son, move aside. Now we control everything here, and you must subjugate yourselves. But what the U.S. does is they put a mask over it. So we supposedly inherited post-World War II the British Empire's role of being the world police, something obviously we all collectively don't agree with here. But we made it so that we would prop up leaders from said place who believe in the United States and who will take financial backing from the United States and who will allow us to exploit natural resources and essentially have geopolitical control of these different regions without actually having to have an American named Dave Smith walk in and say, I now run your country. So they put a mask on the imperialism, and they made it so that it's not an occupation in the classic sense of the word. It's occupation 2.0. So that's my first disagreement. My second one is, I don't blame the troops as much as he's hinting that he does there. I put almost all of the blame at the feet of the leaders. Because when you talk about the troops, we all know them. We all know that, hey, it's this person from this poor neighborhood and they didn't have any opportunities whatsoever, and then a recruiter came in and said, you get X amount of money and you get to serve your country and you get to be noble and you get to protect freedom and yada, yada, yada. And I really think that these are people who don't mean any harm. They're not evil. They're not bad. They're just given what they think is an opportunity and their only way out of poverty and degradation, so they say, okay, I'll do it. And a lot of them have no clue what the hell they're getting into. And the problem is we have leaders who are more than willing to use these brave young American men and women as pawns on a chessboard. And that's not okay. That's totally unacceptable. So I would put the blame at the feet of not only the neoconservatives, they're the worst of them, Dick Cheney, George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, Paul Wolfowitz, but you also have to blame the Democrats. Because the Democrats come along, they make it seem like, oh, we're so much smarter and so much better than these other people. We are not in favor of the Iraq War and the Afghanistan War. Come on. We're only in favor of the Afghanistan War. So our choices are the party that supports every war ever and the party that supports some of the wars. How about none? How about none? How about a political party that comes in and stands up and says, we don't think we have a right to be the world policeman and to ignore international law and the Geneva Conventions. So we are done with that role. Thank you very much. We're only going to do protection of the nation. That's it. I mean, that's what we need, and we don't get that anywhere. But I blame the politicians more than anybody else for sure. And then the final thing is, on the issue of the military-industrial complex, because he kept referencing there that, oh, we're fighting so these billionaires can get rich, and he kept going with that theme. So I think that it's not the cause. Like, the military-industrial complex is not the reason why we act the way that we act. It's just a byproduct which lets people rationalize this belief that we rightfully should be the world policeman and go around the world and impose our will on other people. And that's a distinction I think is very important, and I don't think progressives should overlook it, because I think you gain a lot more credibility when you present it like that. If you speak to people and you're just like, the only reason we did any of these wars was only for profit the entire time, well, that's... Again, I don't think that's true, and that really paints everybody who was involved with this as if they really are, like, evil characters, like they really are in a smoke-filled back room, like, we will have Americans die so that we can make more money. No, it doesn't work like that. I think that they really believe that, no, we are doing the right thing when we go into Iraq and when we liberate them and when we go here, then we go there. And then after the fact, they say, oh, and we also have these upsides of all these corporations make a shitload of money, and then we get to take all the natural resources from the place that we go into, and we get to build another base. And so it's a complex thing. It's not just a single myopic reason, like, we will go to war to get rich. No, it's just that they believe in the American imperialism role and the we are the police role, we should be doing everything we're doing role. They think they're noble, and that's a byproduct. A byproduct of it is, hey, let's get rich. And they don't realize that it becomes insanely gross to everybody who's looking at it objectively, right? Because the pomposity and the arrogance of somebody who thinks, oh yeah, no, we are better than everybody, and we should be doing whatever we want to do all over the place. No, you shouldn't, and the record proves that, from all the civilians you killed, to all the American soldiers themselves who were killed, to the entire situation with destabilization around the world.